I was under the hood of the car when the phone rang. Just a lazy Saturday, oil change kind of afternoon. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would suggest that today was going to leave a mark. My hands were slick with grease, the radio in the garage playing some old Tom Petty song I barely noticed. When I saw her name light up my screen, Ava, I wiped my palms on an old rag and answered without thinking. "Hey, what's up?" I said. She didn't say hello, didn't ask how I was, didn't ask what I was doing. She started mid-sentence, in a tone that already felt defensive. "I'm gonna be late. Something came up. Don't wait on me, all right?" There was a tightness in her voice, a rush to speak, like she was trying to get ahead of something. I paused, caught off guard. "Wait, what? You're not coming to dinner?" "I'll try, but don't hold up anything for me. Seriously." I didn't even get a chance to respond before it happened. A man laughed in the background. Loud, clear, sharp. That kind of laugh that wasn't casual, it was relaxed, familiar, like someone completely comfortable in her space. And it wasn't mine. It wasn't even something you could mistake as ambient noise. It wasn't the kind of laugh that came from a passing stranger or someone shouting from across the street. It was close, too close. There was a pause on the line, not long, just half a second, but long enough. I knew her too well, long enough to hear her thinking. Then, almost too quickly, she said, "Oh, that's just the taxi radio. The driver has it on loud." Her voice had changed. Lighter, more casual. Too casual. I didn't say anything. Not yet. She filled the silence fast, like she couldn't bear to let me process the sound. "Anyway, I can already feel you getting into your head about this, and I really don't have the energy for it today. You always do this." "Do what?" I asked calmly, already knowing where this was going. "This. You twist things. I tell you I'm running late, and suddenly it's an interrogation. It's like you're always looking for something that's not there." Something about the way she said it, the urgency behind it, told me she knew I had heard it. "You're overthinking again," she added. "Seriously, it's exhausting. Can't I just have a normal day without being accused of something?" Accused? I hadn't accused her of anything. Not yet. I kept my voice even. "Ava, I didn't say anything." She let out a frustrated sigh. "Exactly. That's the problem. You go quiet and start making assumptions. It's always the same. I'm just trying to do something normal and suddenly I'm the villain." She was spiraling now. Fast. Defensive people often talk too much, too quickly, hoping to cover a truth before it catches up to them. I looked at the time. 6:38 p.m. She was supposed to be home by 7. I heard movement on her end. Maybe the sound of a car door, or maybe fabric shifting as someone got closer. She spoke again, softer this time, like trying to ease the impact of everything that just happened. "I'll text you when I know more. Okay? I don't want to argue. I really don't. Just trust me on this." I didn't reply. She paused. Then came the final blow, the line she always used when she wanted to shut down a conversation without admitting anything. "I love you. Please don't ruin tonight." And then the line went dead. I stood there for a moment in the middle of the garage, still holding the rag in my hands, the scent of oil thick in the air, Tom Petty's voice carrying on like nothing had happened. But something had. It's strange, that moment when the first crack appears in something you thought was solid. It doesn't shout. It doesn't explode. It just shows itself, quietly, almost politely, like a warning that doesn't want to be one. And the worst part? I didn't even feel surprised. I just stared down at my phone, thinking about how fast she'd gone from explanation to accusation, about how fast she'd tried to flip the script. Make me the problem, the paranoid one. I've always believed that people reveal themselves most clearly when they're scrambling to hide something. You hear it in their voice, see it in their eyes. Ava didn't know it, but the moment she tried to make me feel guilty for simply existing on the other end of the call, that's when I knew. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had instinct. And I had that laugh. I set the phone down on the workbench, peeled off my gloves, and walked outside. The sun was starting to dip low, throwing long shadows across the lawn. From the outside, everything looked the same, Same house, same driveway, same plan for dinner. But everything felt different now. That laugh wasn't part of our life. It wasn't from a friend or a coworker. It wasn't casual. It was int asterisk mate. It was new. And the way she scrambled to bury it said more than she meant to. Funny how a single sound can unravel months of denial. She thought she had dodged something, that I'd let it go. But I've learned that silence is more dangerous than shouting. And when someone thinks you're not watching, that's when they get comfortable enough to make mistakes. That night, I didn't touch the dinner I'd made. Just pushed the food around my plate while the clock ticked and the house settled into silence. I wasn't even angry, not yet. I just felt removed, like I was watching my life from the outside, waiting to see what version of Ava would walk through the door. She came home late, later than she said she would. Claimed traffic. Claimed her phone died. Claimed a driver took the long way. I nodded, smiled, said no problem. Because I wasn't looking for a fight. I was looking for the truth. And that's a quiet hunt. After she went upstairs to shower, I sat on the couch in the dark and started replaying things. Not just the call. Everything. Like pulling boxes out of the attic you'd forgotten were there. Dusty and ignored. The signs had been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. Started, I think, with the gym. She had never been into fitness before. But a few months ago, she suddenly needed to work on herself. Said it helped her mental health. She signed up for a boutique studio across town. Yoga, HIIT, personal training. At first I was happy for her, proud even. But it escalated. She started going 5-6 days a week. Always after work. Always at odd hours. She bought all new workout clothes. Pricey stuff. Lululemon, Aloe, that whole aesthetic. She even got a second gym bag, just for the essentials. And every time she came home, she'd head straight for the shower before saying more than 2 words to me. I told myself not to be insecure. I told myself to support her independence. But something felt off. The scent she wore changed. Subtle but different. It wasn't the one I'd bought her for our anniversary. This one was sharper, bolder. It clung to her clothes in a way that felt unfamiliar. I asked her about it once. She brushed it off. Said it came in a free sample from a store she stopped at on her lunch break. Then came the tech changes. Her phone, which used to sit face up on the kitchen counter, suddenly lived face down. Always. And locked. Not just password protected, biometric only. Even the tablet that used to live on the coffee table vanished into drawers. I once reached for her laptop to check something and it was like I'd triggered an alarm. "That's private," she'd said. Sharp. Like I'd crossed a line that had never existed before. She was working late more often, too. Not dramatically, just enough to be explained away. The team needs extra hands. New hire needs training. Clients in another time zone. The excuses always made sense, until I realized none of them ever repeated. It was a rotating script, just convincing enough to fly under radar. If I pressed, she'd sigh and say, "Can't I have one thing without being questioned?" And so I backed off. Because you don't want to be that guy, the one who's insecure, clingy, paranoid. The one who drives his partner away because he doesn't know how to trust. But here's the thing they don't tell you. Sometimes your instincts aren't paranoia. They're survival. I remembered one afternoon a few weeks back. I'd been cleaning out the glove box in her car before we headed out of town. Found a receipt. Dinner for 2. Italian place downtown. 2 entrees. Shared dessert. A bottle of red. Dated the same night she told me she had a team dinner. When I asked her why she didn't bring leftovers home, she laughed. Said it was more of a tasting menu. "I barely ate," she claimed. But the receipt told a different story. Then there was the rideshare charge, the one that showed up on our shared expense tracker. Pickup location. A boutique hotel in a part of the city she never had business being in. I asked her about it casually, and she blinked once before replying, "Oh, I met a client there for a late meeting. Lobby bars quiet." That was the explanation. No name, no specifics, just enough to fill the air. It wasn't just what she said. It was what she didn't. Names started to disappear from her stories. Where once she'd mentioned coworkers, friends, even customers by name, it all blurred into vagueness. A friend. Someone from work. One of the girls. Like her life had become a closed-door meeting and I'd lost clearance. There were nights she came home too happy, too relaxed, like someone had just taken a deep breath after being held underwater. Once, she strolled in carrying a small shopping bag, said she'd treated herself. I peeked inside later, men's cologne, still in the gift wrap, still with the receipt. No tag, no message. I remember thinking, maybe it's for her brother. Maybe a birthday. It wasn't, because the dates didn't line up, and neither did the lies. But I let it all go. Every single time. Because when you're in it, when you love someone, you learn to fill in the blanks for them. You become their alibi. You become the one telling yourself it's fine. I told myself Ava was just stressed, that the spark would come back, that we were just in a lull, a season, and not a slow unraveling. But deep down, I knew. She wasn't slipping away. She was already gone. She had just stopped telling me, and I had helped her hide it from myself. That night, after she fell asleep, I got up and wandered the house, just walking, thinking, touching the edges of our life like I was trying to see where it had split. I passed our framed wedding photo in the hallway, the one with her laughing in the sunlight, clutching my hand like we had the whole world ahead of us. I stared at that photo for a long time, and it hit me. I hadn't seen that version of her in months, maybe longer. We had conversations, sure. We shared space, calendars, grocery lists. But the soul of it, the int*Macy, the softness, it had evaporated, replaced with schedules and locked screens and distant eyes. I wanted to believe it was fixable, that we'd hit a rough patch, that people just go through things. But you don't lie to someone you're still building a future with. You lie to someone you're planning to leave. I think that was the night I stopped being in love and started being aware. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I wasn't after an apology. I was after clarity. And sometimes, to get the truth, you have to let people dig their own grave. You just stay quiet. And you watch. A week later, she told me she was going away for a weekend. Work retreat, she said over breakfast, eyes on her phone. Some leadership thing. They're flying a few of us out. Team bonding, *LL building, all that. I stirred my coffee. Didn't hear about that before. She didn't look up. It came together last minute. They're pushing hard to improve morale, so they're trying new things. She said it with that tone. The one that suggested I'd be the unreasonable one if I questioned it further. I nodded. Where's it at? She finally looked up. You don't know it. It's this resort like 2 hours out. I'll text you the name if you really want. I just said, sounds nice. She gave me a quick kiss, then stood and grabbed her bag. I'll be back Sunday night. Don't forget to water the plants. And that was it. No hug. No, I'll miss you. Just instructions and distance. She left that Friday morning, suitcase in tow, looking sharper than I'd seen her in weeks. Hair done, new coat, fresh nails. She didn't dress that way for Zoom meetings. But I didn't say anything. I smiled, waved goodbye. And once the car pulled away, I got to work. Because I wasn't a fool anymore. This wasn't about trust. This was about confirmation. A few years back, Ava asked me to help her set up a secondary email. Something for newsletters, travel points, promo codes, a spam inbox, basically. She had forgotten the password at one point and asked me to reset it for her. So I did. And somewhere along the way, the login stayed saved on my old tablet, the one collecting dust in my office drawer. I dug it out that morning, charged it up, and waited. When it finally powered on, I opened the browser. Her email account was still signed in. Inbox was mostly junk, retail ads, hotel chains, coupons. But tucked between them, there it was. A reservation confirmation. Subject line, your upcoming stay at Windermere Lakeside Retreat. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Check-in, Friday afternoon. 2 nights. Deluxe King Suite. Occupancy, 2 guests. A room made for int*Macy. A resort built for couples. Not a single mention of a company name. No seminar. No retreat. Just two names listed on the booking, Ava and Mike. Mike, the same Mike she mentioned once, maybe twice, as a project manager at her office. The one she said was annoying. The one she'd claimed barely spoke to her outside of meetings. I stared at his name like it was a brick to the head. It wasn't the confirmation I wanted. It was worse. It was cold, precise, corporate betrayal, as neat and undeniable as a spreadsheet. For a moment, I just sat there, blinking at the screen. The worst part wasn't the lie. It was the planning, the coordination, the fact that she booked the room in her name, using an email account she had forgotten I ever had access to. I guess she assumed I wouldn't look, or she thought I wouldn't want to know. Either way, she was wrong. I took a *T, emailed it to myself, and logged out. No trace, no confrontation. Not yet, because now I wasn't asking questions anymore. I was preparing answers. That weekend, I kept the house quiet. I didn't call her, didn't text, just let the silence do the work. Ava sent a couple of updates. A blurry photo of a lake at sunset, a group *T that could have been anyone. I recognized no one in it. Her caption said, "Team dinner, exhausting but fun." But I already knew where she was, and who she was with. She came home Sunday night around 10 p.m., hair curled, skin glowing. She looked fulfilled. Her arms were full of bags. She brought me a gift, a coffee mug that said, #OneHusband, still with the resort sticker on the bottom. I looked at it for a long time. "Thanks," I said. "You like it?" "Yeah." I lied. She smiled like she was proud of herself, then launched into a story about how transformative the weekend had been. Something about group exercises, campfire bonding. One of the best experiences I've had in years. I just nodded, let her talk. She didn't notice I wasn't really there. She was too busy reliving it. Later that night, when she went upstairs to shower, I sat on the edge of the bed and held the mug in both hands, trying to imagine what kind of person cheats on their husband and buys him a souvenir on the way home. I guess guilt needs souvenirs now. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling and thought about what I'd seen. The email, the names, the timestamp. I thought about her silence. The way she'd offered just enough detail to keep me pacified. Just enough affection to keep me hopeful. It wasn't a mistake. It was strategy. It was control. The next morning, I opened a private bank account. Quietly. No red flags. I didn't transfer everything, just enough. Enough to rent a place. Enough to get out clean. Enough to start over without panic. I also called a lawyer, not to file anything yet, but to understand my options. What it would look like. What I'd need. What proof counted and what didn't. Then I started collecting. *TS. Text logs. Financial statements. Not because I wanted to destroy her. Because I refused to be the one destroyed. I didn't lash out. Didn't break things. Didn't scream or cry or punch walls. Instead, I got quiet. And I got ready. The next time she smiled and told me she loved me, I smiled back. Because I had seen the truth now. Printed, dated, reserved under both their names. And truth doesn't need permission. It just waits. By the time the week rolled around, Ava had returned to her routines, or at least the version of them that made sense in her world. Smiles over coffee. Muffled calls behind closed doors. Casual mentions of co-workers she suddenly remembered existed. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. I was done waiting for the truth to arrive voluntarily. Because the truth had already shown up. It had knocked, walked in, made itself at home, and poured a drink. Now it was my turn to act. I started with the lease. For months, Ava had been talking about needing space to think. She'd mentioned it casually, like a joke, but with enough frequency that it no longer felt like a hypothetical. "Maybe I need a creative corner," she said once. "A second place just for me. Some women do it." Sure, some women do it. And some women use it to meet the guy from their work retreat. So I gave her what she wanted. A second place. On paper, it looked like a gift. A gesture from a supportive husband who wanted to help his wife reclaim her independence. That's exactly how I pitched it to her. Maybe a small apartment would give you what you've been craving. Room to think. Right? Stretch out. She looked surprised at first. You're okay with that? Of course, I said, calm and steady. I want you to have your own space. We don't need to be on top of each other all the time. She hesitated, but the idea of unmonitored freedom was too appealing. She smiled. Wow, that's honestly really thoughtful. I nodded. I've already spoken to a realtor. There's a great space not far from downtown. Furnished. Modern. Month to month. Want to take a look? She said yes. 2 days later, we toured it together. It was everything she liked. Exposed brick, huge windows, minimalist kitchen. She walked through the rooms like she was already seeing herself there. I let her fall in love with it. And then I gave her the lease. It came from one of the LLCs I quietly owned, a business I'd used for side projects and consulting. It wasn't connected to me in any obvious way. Just a shell company in name, but one that legally owned the apartment. The contract was standard on the surface, but the fine print was anything but. It included clauses about occupancy, noise complaints, liability, damages, and, most importantly, a moral clause. It stated that if the space was used for activity that could harm the reputation of the company, real or perceived, the lease could be terminated immediately with no refund. It also had a visitor clause. No unauthorized overnight guests. No subletting. Violations would result in automatic penalties. The language was clean, professional, and ironclad. She signed it without reading it. Didn't even blink. She thought I was being generous. Thought she had won. The next day, she moved in. I watched her unpack from the hallway. She laughed, called it her creative cave, said she'd be coming back and forth, but needed this energy. I nodded. Whatever helps you feel more like yourself. She kissed me, not out of love, out of relief, out of the belief that she now had a place where she could lie better. I didn't interfere. I didn't ask where she was going at night or when she'd be back. I watched from a distance, quietly. Within a week, it began. I started getting security logs from the building, timestamps of entries. I didn't even need cameras. Her guest, Mike, showed up every few days. His name was on nothing. He never stayed longer than a few hours. But he was regular, predictable. One evening, I drove past and saw the lights on. Silhouettes moving behind the blinds. Music faintly playing. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. She was exactly where I expected her to be, with him in a place she thought was hers, under terms she didn't bother to read. Meanwhile, I kept the documents, filed the entries, noted the overlaps. This wasn't revenge. It was preparation. I updated the file with copies of every security log, every delivery, every guest, and I let it build. She kept texting me about working late, staying in to write, needing clarity. I responded with thumbs-up emojis and the occasional proud of you. She never questioned why I wasn't questioning her. That's how confident she was. Or maybe how far gone. She didn't see the trap because she didn't think she needed to. Eventually, she started leaving things behind: clothes, books, jewelry. The apartment became more than a second space. It became her real space, the one that belonged to her version of the truth. But in reality, she was living in a legal agreement, a structure I had built, and signed, and sealed. The apartment, her refuge, her playground, her clarity cave, was a stage, and she was acting inside a contract. Every violation was documented, every lie typed, every guest accounted for. I wasn't watching to catch her. I was watching so she couldn't say she didn't know, because denial thrives in shadows. But she had walked into the spotlight willingly, and soon it would be time to lower the curtain. After a few weeks in the apartment, Ava's online presence changed. Started small. Picture here, quote there, captions that sounded like they were aimed at no one in particular, but felt loaded anyway. New chapters require different scenery. Sometimes you have to lose yourself to find what matters. Energy doesn't lie. It was the kind of thing you'd scroll past if you didn't know better, the curated grief of someone trying to look healed before the damage had even been acknowledged. Hashtags like #growth, #self-love, Hashtag rise above sat beneath filtered sh*ts of sunsets and half-finished wine glasses. Every photo was perfectly lit. Every caption carefully vague. The comments started rolling in at first. "Oh my God! You're glowing. Love this vibe for you. You're inspiring, girl. Keep doing you." But I noticed something. The people commenting, they weren't our people. Not the friends we used to double date with. Not the coworkers who knew both of us. Not her family. They were mostly acquaintances. Strangers. People from her yoga classes. Random accounts with private profiles. Digital cheerleaders clapping from the sidelines, with no idea what they were actually applauding. And him, Mike, he was always there, liking every post within minutes. Dropping emojis. Fire. Heart eyes. The occasional fire queen fire. First, she didn't tag him. But I saw his shadow everywhere. The way she angled her wine glass to obscure a second across the table. The hint of a man's leg in the corner of a reflection. The tone. That subtle performance of freedom, one staged not for authenticity but for proof. Proof that she was fine. Proof that she had grown. Proof that she had made the right choice. But here's the thing about performing for an audience. Eventually, the crowd starts to leave. It didn't happen all at once. That's not how these things go. At first, it was the silence of people who normally never missed a post. The old roommate who used to comment, "Miss you, red heart," under everything. The cousin who used to res-hair her stories. The mutual friends who would reply to every joke. One by one, they stopped. Not out of cruelty, out of discomfort. Because people notice. They notice when someone changes the narrative but forgets to fill in the blanks. They notice when a person suddenly becomes too polished, too enlightened, too above it all. Starts to feel fake, forced. And no one claps for an act that drags on too long. Soon the only consistent likes came from one account, his. No comments. Just the quiet, predictable acknowledgement of a man who had bet everything on someone else's already fractured life. They weren't public together, not officially. But anyone with a brain could connect the dots. One photo tagged at a lake cabin. Another post, same day, same exact sunset in the background, posted from his account. Two captions. One evening. Zero subtlety. People started noticing. Not the strangers, the ones who knew her. The ones who had watched her build a life with me for years. That's when the real silence began. Text chains that used to buzz with shared memes and dinner plans started going cold. Invitations stopped coming. Even her family, especially her sister, went quiet. I heard through a friend that someone asked her about me at a get-together. Just a casual, "Hey, how's everything going with you, Anne?" Apparently, she froze. Then pivoted to something about honoring my truth. I guess that's what we're calling it now. Honor. Funny word for what happened. But she stuck to her script. Photos, quotes, sunsets. Like the right angle could rewrite reality. Like if she could keep looking happy, no one would ask why she wasn't actually happy. But you can only run so long on attention that isn't real. I saw it in her posts. The ones that stayed up longer than usual. The ones she kept editing hours after they went live. Changing a word here. Deleting a hashtag. Updating the caption to something more mature. She even turned off comments for a while. Said it was for mental clarity. I said nothing. I didn't need to, because the truth doesn't need applause. It just waits for silence. And it got louder every day. Meanwhile, I was living in a different reality. One without filters. One with furniture she never sat on again. One with space. And not the kind she asked for. The kind that's earned when the storm passes and the air finally clears. I stopped checking her posts eventually. Not because I didn't care, but because there was nothing new to see. Same woman. Same pose. Same lie. Packaged with different lighting. A carousel of self-justification, spinning slower and slower as the people watching found better things to do. She had burned the bridge and tried to light her path with it. But embers don't last forever. And performance only works when someone claps. Came on a Tuesday. A courier at my door with a plain envelope. No return address. Inside a check. Clean, typed, cold. The amount covered everything, the penalties from the apartment lease, Overdue utilities, minor damages. No note, no apology, just payment. I scanned it, sent a copy to my attorney, and closed the file. That was her version of closure. Not an explanation, not a conversation, just compensation. As if money could fix what silence had shattered. But facts don't argue. Numbers don't lie. And guilt has a price tag. Hers was exact. She showed up weeks later expecting fire, expecting a scene. But I'd already left that stage. Everything had been said, in signatures, in silence, in the legal threads she didn't bother reading. She stood there waiting for a breakdown. I gave her calm. She stayed in the apartment she thought was freedom. But it was a contract. A quiet consequence. I didn't fight. I didn't win. I exited. Clean. Final. Done.